Hey everybody, this is Anthony, and you are of course tuned in to the VR Game Rankings YouTube channel. This is our daily vlog series. It is a brand new week. We are now at February 12th, 2018. It is Monday, and there is a lot of excitement in the air because you know what? Next week we have two really big releases in the world of VR gaming. We have Moss for PlayStation VR, which looks like one of the more interesting platforming games in VR. Very excited about that. And we also have Brass Tactics. Yes, that is right. Brass Tactics by Hidden Path Entertainment is coming out next week. And let me tell you, I actually have some discussion coming up on Brass Tactics a little bit later in the show. But before we get to that, by the way, this is episode 96. I don't know if I said that, for Monday, February 12th. But let's go ahead and get into the news stories for the day. So first off, I got to say, news is a little bit light. I was looking at the various news stories that were out there. Not a lot really jumped out at me. Not a lot of it really spoke to me. But there was one news story that I found rather interesting, and I want to dive into that. And so that is on Upload VR. Upload VR has a news story about a developer for the game, behind the game Knockout League, was talking in a recent interview about PlayStation 5 and PSVR 2. And basically the gist of this article is that this developer believes that PlayStation 5 and PSVR 2, that these should be separate products available to the public at large, but that while they might be separate, they really need to be considered absolutely essential together. And so he's kind of looking towards the future. So this interview actually took place with the official PlayStation magazine in the UK. And the developer that I'm talking about here is Harold Vankel, the creative director at Grab Games. And so if Grab Games does not ring a bell, they are the developer of Knockout League. Now, as we well know, Knockout League, of course, came to the HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift quite some time ago, and it is, I don't know, is it out on PlayStation VR yet, or is it coming very soon to PlayStation VR? I can't remember if it came out or if it's coming very soon, but Knockout League is of course coming to PlayStation VR, and that's probably why he was being interviewed by PlayStation Magazine UK. And so I'm going to go ahead and give you the exact quote that he had in this article. This is what Harold Vankel had to say about PlayStation 5 and about a potential PlayStation VR 2. He says, "Buying a new console is a big undertaking for a lot of people, and buying the headset that I think people want to see in the future of PlayStation can almost be like buying a new console. So having these purchases separated gives each thing its own chance to shine, its own time to shine. However, PlayStation 5 and PSVR should be considered essential together." So this is a quote from Harold Vankel from this article, and I thought this would be a decent jumping off point to maybe think a little bit about PlayStation 5 and a little bit about PlayStation VR 2. And so let's take a look at the current situation that we have right now. Obviously, PlayStation 4 launched back in November of 2013. And when we think about a typical console life cycle is typically 5 to 6 years, which would normally mean that we would be looking at a PlayStation 5, possibly November 2018 or November 2019. However, we are in a bit of a different kind of a climate right now in the video game industry because we don't have these clear-cut console generations that we typically used to have that were every 5 and 6 years. As you well know, PlayStation, Sony came out with the PlayStation 4 Pro. And then, of course, Xbox just recently countered with the Xbox One X. So these are not brand new generations. These are kind of side generations, side upgrades. And it's changed the way that we've considered the video game market. But PlayStation 4 has been out there for a while. And then, of course, we did get PlayStation VR in October of 2016, and it has now been available for a little while as well. And so the thought process then goes to, well, what about PlayStation 5? What about PlayStation VR 2? Now, one thing that we know about when it comes to the PlayStation VR platform is Sony has a serious problem when it comes to the controllers. I think everybody can accept this. The Move controllers that are being used for PlayStation right now, these are not designed long-term for VR. These were not really designed with VR in mind. Remember, they were designed with the PlayStation Move concept that came out with PlayStation 3. And while certainly Sony was thinking about virtual reality even way back then, that was a consideration that they had. These controllers were not specifically designed with VR in mind, and it's been painfully obvious. The tracking system that Sony uses is not necessarily the most robust tracking system, and so anybody that owns, say, an HTC Vive and an Oculus Rift and also owns PlayStation VR, we all know how capable PlayStation VR is. PlayStation VR is not this redheaded stepchild that doesn't have value. PlayStation VR is legit, and it is capable of some incredible experiences, incredible VR games. We've seen it repeatedly over and over again. We've seen some incredible games on PSVR. We've even seen some PC VR games like Raw Data and Arizona Sunshine and Superhot. We've seen a lot of these games come over to the PlayStation VR and lose very, very little in the translation. So PSVR is very capable, but these controllers are definitely holding it back a little bit. And so we are kind of thinking, well, could Sony possibly come out with some new controllers, or do they need to come out with an entirely new PlayStation VR system? And then if they do that, how does all of that relate to PlayStation 5? And the way that I look at it is, the controllers are absolutely the Achilles heel for the PSVR platform. They are definitely holding the PSVR platform back to a definite degree. But the problem is, see, here's the thing. Sony is in between a rock and a hard place when it comes to this situation, because they can't just release new controllers. That's what everybody on the PlayStation VR subreddit believes, that Sony can simply release some new controllers and everything is good. The problem with this is, remember the tracking system that they're using. They are using a single camera for their tracking system, and the PSVR headset uses an optical light based tracking system. The controllers use an optical light based tracking system. So if Sony were to come out with brand new Move controllers for their existing platform as it is right now, then we are going to get those big colored lights on the controllers again. And I think that is not the best idea. Optical light is probably not the way to go. I think Sony is well aware of this. Now, it worked very well for them in the launch of PlayStation VR up to this point. And I think PlayStation VR, one of the things that it has going for itself is that it is good enough. It is just barely good enough. And they've been able to keep the price low by using these existing Move controllers and using already pre-existing technology. They've been able to keep everything low and affordable, and that is great. And that has helped it hit 2 million sales and rising. And PSVR is widely accepted in the gaming world and has been gaining momentum with each passing month and with all the big releases that continue to hit it. But we know that these controllers are an issue, but the tracking system, are they going to come out with a completely new tracking system? That creates problems. So I think Sony has to look towards the second version of PlayStation VR. And it's simply natural to consider an idea of not only coming out with a PlayStation 5, but also a second version of the PlayStation VR and coming out with them all together in one fell swoop. Now, I have suggested a number of times that My belief is November of 2019, which is well over a year away. We still got a long time away from this. We still got a long time to get to November 2018. And then I'm talking about another entire year on top of that. But it's my belief that Sony might actually look to launch the PlayStation 5 in November 2019 and also come with PSVR 2 with completely brand new tracking system, with hopefully some type of new wiring system. I mean, wireless would be incredible, but that is a lot to ask. But we're talking about November 2019, so we are talking about quite a bit in the future. But this developer, Harold Vankel of Knockout League, he's saying that these things should be considered absolutely essential together. And I completely agree. But what I'm not so sure about is this really resonating with mass market consumers that quickly? That's where I don't know. I might see a possible disconnect, because a PlayStation 5 is not going to be an inexpensive item all by its own. It's probably going to cost $400 all by its lonesome. And if the PlayStation VR 2 is highly capable and is a lot better than what we have now, has better resolution, possibly a better field of view, possibly better reduced screen door effect, and all the other things that we expect with new technology coming to a VR headset, possibly eye tracking, possibly foveated rendering, all kinds of possibilities, maybe wireless. I mean, that is always a possibility, and a completely new tracking system. So that is going to be expensive as well. But we could look possibly to November of 2019. But this is something to keep in the back of our minds as we think about the future of the PlayStation VR platform. Okay, didn't want to spend so long on that, but let's go ahead and get to story number 2. Now, story number 2, I'm actually going to go into a game discussion, and the game discussion is Brass Tactics Arena. Okay, so you guys know that every time that I've mentioned Brass Tactics, I've kind of gone into this diatribe about how I'm not really into real-time strategy games, and real-time strategy games tend to overwhelm me, and it's a multitasking simulator, and this isn't really my bag, and this is not my type of game, so I might not really get into Brass Tactics Arena, or Brass Tactics itself, which is coming out next week on the 22nd. But yesterday I was on the VR Roundtable episode, the most recent VR Roundtable episode, which has also gone live today. And Steve on the show, he did try Brass Tactics Arena, and he had so many good things to say about it that after the show, I thought, you know what, let me jump into Brass Tactics Arena. Let me give this thing a chance. Let me check it out. And I went ahead and did that. And I have to say, oh my goodness, I was absolutely blown away by the experience that Hidden Path Entertainment has delivered. Now, again, I've said it a million times, I'm not really into these strategy type of games, but this is an entirely different animal. Now, the production value is off the freaking charts when it comes to Brass Tactics Arena. This is one of these types of games where you might encounter a game that is not necessarily in your particular genre, but it's just handled so well. It's handled so deftly. It's handled with such skill, such production value, just lavish production values just all over this game. I mean, it is absolutely dripping with high quality production and polish and shine. It is truly spectacular. And so sometimes you'll get a game that is completely out of your normal genre, but it's been done so well that this game can almost be an introduction to a genre that maybe you're not a fan of, but maybe you now have to reevaluate your thought process. I always kind of discounted these real-time strategy games, and I've always thought, these things just aren't for me. This just isn't my bag. But getting into Brass Tactics and trying this Brass Tactics Arena, which kind of serves like a demo, I've been really quite blown away with the experience that I've experienced yesterday. I tried this last night, actually. And the thing about it is, so when you get into Brass Tactics Arena, there is this large table that is laid out in front of you, and you actually can play this game standing up, and I played it standing up, and so you're just standing up, you're at this huge table, and it's kind of, if you could imagine in the Pentagon or something, like there's this war room, and you're planning your battle strategy, and there's this large table that's laid out, and you have your castle and your fortress on one side, and the enemy's fortress is way over on the other side of the table, and you have your different forces that can attack their forces, and you kind of set everything up. And it's one of these battle things. And I got to tell you, anybody that has ever played with army men or little Star Wars action figures or whatever you did when you were a kid, I know everybody's done this. I know that I've done this. I can remember when I was a little kid, we had those army men, like from Toy Story, those little green army men. And there were brown army men and green army men, and you would set them up. And, you had the little army men that had bazookas. You had the army men that were prone on the ground. You maybe even had some tanks and stuff like that. And you might have a buddy come over to your house, and you would play out these little war games, and you would do it in your living room, maybe on the carpet, and you would kind of create this whole entire scene out in front of you. And that is very much the kind of experience that Brass Tactics brings to the table. Now, one of the things, though, about real-time strategy games that have always been difficult for me to kind of wrap my head around is that there's so many controls, it's so complicated, and it just kind of seems overwhelming. But that is where the power of virtual reality comes into play with this Brass Tactics Arena, because I tell you what, you have your archery guys, you have your artillery guys, you have your cavalry guys, and it's so simple with your touch controllers to click on your different units and to just say, okay, I want you to go over there. I want you to go over here. I want you guys to attack. I want you guys to just stay. Incredibly simple, absolutely effortless. It makes the game so incredibly easy. So you basically have your castle area, you have your units, and what you do is you send them out, you attack the enemies, and there will be these little tower areas. And so if you can take over an enemy's tower, and now you have the ability to put your type of situation onto their tower. So you can create a new archery tower, you can create a new artillery tower, you can create a new cavalry tower, and then what you do is on that tower, you can click it 3 different times, and you can have it create those units, artillery units, cavalry units, archery units, and the different units go up against the enemy's different units in different ways. For example, the archers have the advantage over the artillery soldiers. The cavalry has the advantage over the archers. And then the cavalry has the advantage over the archers. The soldiers have the advantage over the cavalry. So it's basically rock, paper, scissors is pretty much what it is, but it's just the way everything is combined. It just works so incredibly well. And then also, when you're in this environment where it's all taking place, there's this table there, right? You can raise or lower the table, and you can grab the table and just pull it. You can quickly go to one side. You can move the table over here. It's just magical, man. It's this magical world. And this is truly special. It's spectacular. I am absolutely blown away with what I experienced with Brass Tactics yesterday. I can't wait to get back in there and try some more of this. And I am very much looking forward to the final release of Brass Tactics next week. Never would have thought this would be a game that would interest me, but it is magnificent. Truly blown away by what I experienced last night. Okay, before we get out of here, already running out of time, so I guess we're just going to get into that one news story and then Brass Tactics. And then the one other thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit is Sirento VR. Yeah, I think I'm pronouncing it right. I think it is Sirento VR, I guess. I still can't pronounce this damn game. I want to say Sariento VR, and I know it's not pronounced that. It's Sirento VR. So Mixed Realms reached out to me last week. They did provide me with a review code, full disclosure, and I truly appreciate that. And over this weekend, I was able to play this game a number of times, and I am still very early. I mean, I've only touched the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this game, and I'm still very much a rookie and still very much a noob as I work my way through Sirento VR. But I have experienced the game to some degree, and I do have some takes on it. And basically, my take on this game is that if you are a fan of Superhot, if you're a fan of Robo Recall, this will probably be your jam, because this is kind of almost like a perfect combination between both of those games and just that kind of action. And then the other thing that this game really provides, and possibly provides better than maybe any other VR game I've ever experienced, is when it comes to teleporting, this game is all about the teleport. And the teleport is absolutely mission critical when it comes to this game, because basically every surface that you see in this game, you can jump off of every surface. So, a lot of games have wall running and that type of thing. Well, this is more wall jumping. And so what you can do is, like, let's say there is a side wall that's over there. You can teleport over to that side wall, hit the side of it, and then now you have a new jumping point. And now you can jump from that side wall somewhere else. And you also have the capabilities of doing a double jump. And so you could jump really high up into the air. And when you're at your maximum altitude of that jump, you can do another jump right at that point and jump again. And there is kind of this slow motion effect. And so what happens is, as you get better and better in this game, you're going to turn into an acrobat. You're going to be jumping and hopping and bounding all over the place like a crazy maniac. You're going to be bouncing and bopping all over, and you are going to be slicing and you are going to be dicing, because the weapons that you get in this game, you get 2 blades that are behind you that you can... Oh man, I just screwed this up. You get 2 blades behind you that you can pull out, and you can slash the hell out of anything. You can chop people in half. You can do all kinds of crazy attacks with your blades. And then of course you have guns right here on your hip as well. So you've got guns, you've got blades, you can slice and dice, you can shoot the living daylights out of these enemies. And then the environments that you're in, this game is very cyberpunk. It's very Neo Tokyo. It's kind of Blade Runner-ish to a degree, but it also has this, this Japanese samurai thing going on as well, and like ninjas and samurai warriors, but kind of futuristic and Blade Runner-ish. And it all combines and works out very well. Now, do I have any complaints about what I've played so far? Well, I've only been very, very early in this game. I've played the very first campaign level, got through that, and now I'm in campaign level 2. So like I said, I have barely scratched the surface. I am a complete noob when it comes to this game. My boy Erwin X, he has a lot of videos that are on YouTube where he is doing just incredible maneuvers as he's playing this game, playing it like on an expert difficulty, just doing incredible things. And I am like a Padawan learner. I am nowhere near that. He is like freaking Yoda, and I am a Padawan learner. I am nowhere near that. And I'm just getting started in learning the mechanics of this game. But as I went through the first level, I mean, the only real criticism that I have is that it can get kind of confusing as you continue to move through the level. One of the things that I noticed is I would get to these different areas and it's like, wait a minute, haven't I always already been here? Did I take the wrong turn? Should I go back that way? So I got a little bit confused about, am I supposed to go this way? Am I supposed to go that way? Some of the areas kind of repeated a bit and seemed kind of the same. That was a little bit confusing. And then the other issue that I had is there's this car alarm sound effect that goes off in certain parts of level 1. It's like a car alarm from 1999. Okay, we've all heard the car alarms at your apartment or whatever, where somebody's car alarm goes off and it doesn't, it's just continuously going off and you can't stand it. But they have that sound effect in this game, and it's like, wait a minute, there's a little bit of a disconnect here with this car alarm sound effect, because it seems like it's the year 2200 or something. We're in the future, it's very Blade Runner-ish, yet we got this car alarm from 1999 that is constantly ringing in my ears. So that was a little bit distracting. It was a little bit confusing going through the opening level. I kind of started to wonder if I was going the wrong way. But other than that, the action is fast, the action is furious, and the game is very exciting. And if you are a huge fan of Superhot, if you're a huge fan of Robo Recall, this is kind of your game. So this is something you should definitely check out. You should definitely consider. I'm really liking Sirento VR, but like I said, just scratch the surface of it. Definitely have to give it a lot more game time. All right, folks, so we've actually gone quite a bit longer than I normally go on these shows, but that's going to go ahead and do it. This has been episode 96 for Monday, February 12th, and hopefully tomorrow we can get back into a lot more news stories, hopefully some exciting news stuff on the docket, and maybe even some additional game discussion as well. I didn't talk about Sprint Vector. I have been playing some more of that, so we might be able to get into a little bit of that tomorrow. Alrighty, folks, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this episode of the Daily Vlog series, and I will see everybody tomorrow on Tuesday. Take it easy. Later.